Hello, everybody. My name is Stefan Chapman. I am Vice President at Petroleum Consultants. We are an independent consultancy active in oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors. And we are also the organizers of ESF North America. This conference is fully focused on the decarbonization and sustainability for the oil and gas downstream industry. Today, I'm truly honored to be joined by Catherine Reheis-Boyd, who is President and CEO of the Western States Petroleum Association, WSPA. WSPA is a non-profit trade association that represents companies that account for the bulk of petroleum exploration, production, refining, transportation, and marketing in 5 of the US Western states: Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. We are truly honored to have WSPA's official support for ESF North America. And we also have Catherine as one of our keynote speakers. So today we're delighted to be able to catch up with Catherine ahead of the conference to be able to discuss on some of the key topics that are facing these 5 Western states and the wider industry in its journey to a more sustainable future. Catherine, a warm welcome to you. I hope all is okay.
Thank you, Stefan. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. So I'm going to start off with a topic or a question that is very much at the forefront of the agenda, and that is access to affordable and reliable energy. I think a lot is being said at the moment about this and how key it is. Without doubt, fossil fuels will continue to play a significant role in the world's energy mix, and this for some time. And whilst the world needs energy, there is definitely a role for refineries to play. Each company, I think, each refinery must come up with their own view on how they can best make work this transition and how they do this whilst continuing, obviously, in a responsible way to provide communities with the much needed energy. With all that in mind, how does the industry differentiate between short-term accessibility, affordability with the more medium to long-term decarbonization delivery?
Well, thank you, Stefan. And that's the question of the day, isn't it? The world needs energy, and our industry's role is to provide it, right? It's to provide it 24/7. And as you stated, every company has their own view, and that's also an exciting piece of the equation, because every company's view of the future is very different. And I find that the most fascinating, because it gives the widest breadth of options for all of us to consider, given each of the company's expertise. And so I think that's a really healthy, good thing. And I think there's one thing that everybody agrees on, even though that we have companies with different views of how to approach the future, I think they all agree on that we have to continue to provide communities the energy they need. And that balance of affordability and decarbonization is the challenge, right? It's, I think, a misconception to think this industry is opposed to sustainable innovation, because that's the farthest thing from the truth. The innovation that's going on currently, well, actually in the past, currently, and will go on in the future in the areas of renewable natural gas, renewable diesel, hydrogen, wind, solar, EVs, CCS, carbon capture sequestration, all of that they are on top of and doing every single day. And as I tell the media every day, as I speak with them, if not us, then who? Right? We have, I think, a unique expertise in capitalizing on the science and the facts of how one gets from where we are to where we want to go. And I don't think it's based on emotions and political aspirations, which is some of the challenges we are facing today here in the West. And we have aggressive climate goals for sure in all of our Western states, especially California, Washington, and Oregon. And we don't oppose the goals. What we try to do is put together a realistic plan to help the states get where they want to go. And again, that is not, a plan is not based on hopes and dreams and aspirations. It's based on science and facts. And that is some of our biggest challenge, is really bringing those facts to the table and having people appreciate that it's not an easy fix to go from where we've been for centuries to where we want to go in the future, because it's very different. One just example I point to is last summer, we were passing regulations and executive orders through the administration to ban the sale of internal combustion engines by 2035. We were also asking anyone who had an EV to not plug in. We were asking marine vessels at ports to disconnect from the grid. We were considering reversing the decision to decommission Diablo Power Plant. We were begging natural gas powered plants to remain online. That to me is not a well thought out plan. And so when you hear our industry talk about an all of the above energy strategy, it's because we don't think you should pick winners and losers. We don't think you should focus on one single technology. We think the market is the best course to let it drive the innovation and find consistency in our energy supply as we plan for the future. And the other thing I always remind, although I'm not great in math per se, I always remind the media A plus B still must equal C. So we still have to have a plan that actually works from chemistry, physics, and just pure practicality. And I think your question on affordability, even the California Resources Board scoping plan, which is the blueprint for this transition on the West, actually states its existing goals are going to be very difficult and very expensive, and that the cost is going to be borne by the consumer. So there'll be job loss, there'll be leakage to other states. And so I think we need a thoughtful plan on how to get from A to B. We've provided several options for the administration, the Resources Board, the Energy Commission to consider, because we do believe you can reach these goals. We just think there's a better way that's more affordable and doesn't have some of the economic implications that we're seeing in the current plans.
Definitely. I think failing to plan is planning to fail. I think people have always said that. And I think we also, like you mentioned, I think we need to be seen as part of the solution. I think there is in the media, I think it's an ongoing battle to show that we want to make this transition happen. We want to reach those goals, but we should be seen as part of the solution. I think during your answer, you also touched upon the topic of regulations and the importance of regulations, legislations. And I think WSPA believes that these policymakers should maintain optionality and avoid, like you said, picking winners and losers. In your opinion, what role has the recent Inflation Reduction Act played in changing the conversation and leveling this playing field at both federal and state levels?
Oh, thank you for that question. And I just think I'd start by saying that in concept, right? In concept, it's great in that anything we can do to benefit the country, right? And so I think in concept, it has some really good things. The worry I have is that there are several issues related to affordability, cost, and how one goes about this. And costs and taxes, in my opinion, I think in our industry's opinion, is a dangerous policy that's not rooted in what we would call energy reality. More taxes on energy companies, especially in an energy crisis mode, imposing, I think, is $11.7 billion, is going to result in higher prices for consumers, not lower prices. 15% tax on adjusted financial statement for corporations with income over $1 billion is not going to encourage investment. The federal government, the state government wants us to bring more supply to market so that we minimize market volatility. At the same time, they want to heavily tax us for the privilege of doing that. It just does not make sense. So taxes on methane emissions, I would rather see cost-effective regulations as a much better approach than bringing another $6 billion price tag on the very industry who's trying to help get this country from A to B in a transition that's sustainable. I don't think higher cost vehicles versus a technology neutral approach is being considered in a balanced way. I think the bill also omits much of the permitting reform that is absolutely needed for the infrastructure, not just for the critical oil and gas, but the infrastructure that we will need for renewables to make the transition happen and to meet demand. So I think, although in concept, I think it's certainly meritorious, I think its bias is obvious, and it has significant economic implications, not only for this industry, but for this industry's ability to invest in the future.
Definitely, I think there needs to be a consistency. I think it is very important. Like we said at the beginning, the importance of fossil fuels. We still have a huge role to play. And I think if we look at the end of the day, what everyone wants is the quality of life to keep on improving, keep on increasing. And this has been for, the last century or so, based on the advancements of fossil fuels. So now we're trying to imagine a world where we have all these advancements that we've had with fossil fuels, but without the serious implications of fossil fuels. So the challenge ahead of us needs an all hands on deck kind of approach. Why is it so important for WSPA to be part of this conversation and also to be part of the solution or the solutions? Because we know it's not going to be just one solution that's going to make things go in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously we have, in our view, we've powered the economy for over a century. So we have to have a seat at the table. It's imperative we have a seat at the table. It's imperative that there's a recognition of the incredible brain trust that really resides in these companies, in our members, in our workers. It's just remarkable from my standpoint. I've been in this business now for over 40 years, and so I've seen the innovation. I've been involved in rolling out 3 cleaner burning gasolines and removing lead from gasoline and going to ultra low sulfur diesel. I mean, all these innovations and improvements in the fuel that we produce and the relationship of the automobile and the fuel that moves it is, I think it's incredible. And I think just the recognition that we have to be a partner, we have to be a seat at the table. We are part of the backbone of the United States economy. We're very forward thinking. We drive solutions, we collaborate, we partner, we use common sense, science-based facts. And there just seems such a reluctance, Stefan, to have us at the table when we're so willing to be there. And that is one of my biggest frustrations in the West, is the continued attack on the very industry that wants to help each of our states get where they want to go. And that's just a very big frustration. So I think we've got to be part of the conversation. We want to be part of the conversation. We have to have a seat at the table. It would just be nice if we were not on the menu.
I totally agree. I think I was thinking about how we could term this, and I think the word you've used, frustration, is exactly this. And to have a seat at the table, I think it's also important, expanding on that a little bit further, is this transition will require partnerships, collaborations. As an industry, we know we're not capable of solving this by ourselves. We just want to be involved, like you said, have a seat at the table. But there are significant opportunities that lie in open dialogue and cross-industry collaborations. How has your organization, WSPA, and your members championed collaboration and built partnerships with a common focus, which is our common focus, which is reducing collective carbon emissions?
Yeah, thank you. And I think we go into it with no one has the corner on wisdom, right? We don't. We think we have a lot to offer, but we also know that everyone has a lot to offer. We work with the environmental community. We work with the environmental justice community. We work in the communities to try to understand really how they view energy and how they view quality of life and what's important to them. Because if it's not a matter of what's important to us, it's really a matter of what's important to the constituents, to the consumers, to the communities that we serve, because we have to align with that. So we approach everything we do from that lens. And I think, as I've told the media, who always ask the question, well, aren't you afraid of this transition? And I say, well, this industry has been in transition since horse and buggy. This is not new to us, right? We've transitioned every step of the way, and we will continue to transition because we are involved in energy and all forms of it. And so I think some of the things we've done with the environmental justice community, not to get into too much of the weeds, but AB 617 was a bill that really engaged the environmental justice community throughout the state of California to collaborate on an approach to reduce emissions in their backyard, as we're also looking at, greenhouse gas emissions. Criteria pollutants are equally as important to the health of these communities. And so we are in big collaboration on that program. We've been involved in, for many, many years, something called the Central California Ozone and Particulate Matter Study. Again, joining forces with the state, going to Washington, D.C. to get appropriations, to get the science in place to tell us and inform us how to solve the problem. Not how we think we should solve it, but how the science tells us to solve it, so that we can get to the end point and have a sustainable future within the Central Valley, which is where some of the struggles of the state lie. And so those are some of the examples. We also were very involved in the cap and trade program. We supported the cap and trade program in California and helped design it so that it would be a premier program that the rest of the nation could, learn from and evolve into. So those are just some of the things that we've been involved in, but our members are involved across the spectrum in all of these things. And I think also in just collaborating with higher education institutions, we've done a lot of work with Stanford, with Berkeley, with Davis, with UCLA. I mean, we try to engage Lawrence Livermore Labs. We try to engage all of the resources we have in the academic community, because that's a very important stakeholder, as we talked prior to everyone having a seat at the table. The whole academic and research side of this equation is absolutely critical. And so we do a lot of work with them and partnering on biofuels and on alternative fuels and on battery technology. And again, I'm so excited about the innovation from our companies. It just is really incredible, the minds that we have at our disposal to help really build these partnerships and this collaboration. And we have to have it to advance into the future. So I think we have a rich story to tell there. I think our innovations are off the charts, and I've been capturing all of those from our companies and using it as we, just explain our desire to really not just talk about innovation, but actually do it and make, significant improvements in going forward from getting from A to B.
It's great to hear all these different developments and innovations, like you said, which are very much needed if we want to reach, the objectives that we've set ourselves. And I think this makes me turn to my next point, which is technologies. We know that technologies will have a central role in reaching those goals. So when we're looking at the longer term, the industry continues to look to innovate in pursuit of the next generation in terms of technologies. But we must also focus on the more near term, look at decarbonising where possible now and build a clear plans towards abatement. In your opinion, what are the lower hanging fruit efficiencies and incremental benefits that are still available today for our industry?
Yeah, certainly efficiencies just in the CAFE standards on the vehicle side certainly is of interest. The hybrid technology, I think, is way overlooked. I mean, we have hybrid vehicles that I think in the short term just bring such a benefit because they deal with the challenge of just pure electrics, which, range either from range anxiety or cost or availability, all those things. Hybrids can really serve such a significant role in that gap. So I think they're overlooked, frankly, and I think that's low-hanging fruit we should continue to focus on. And then I think the other one that is frustrating, again, that word comes up, in California, is our ability to actually move forward on carbon capture sequestration. We have companies around the world, as you know, that are successful in this technology and want to deploy it in California. But the opposition to this technology is very strong here, not necessarily from the government side, but certainly from the environmental justice community, who are trying to work with on understanding what the concerns of that technology are, because it is a known technology. It certainly can help us. And actually in California, to meet our 2045 carbon neutrality goals, the Lawrence Livermore Labs did a complete study funded with DOE that said California cannot meet their carbon neutrality goals, completely cannot meet them if we do not do CCS in the state. And so that is one area in the short term that we have been working on for 6 years to try to get California to move forward. So that's been a frustration, but I think it's moving now. I think there's much more support for it, and hopefully we'll get projects going. I think the other area is in hydrogen and renewable natural gas and renewable diesel. In renewable diesel, 2 of our major refineries in the Bay Area are converting completely to a renewable diesel facility. And that is exciting. I didn't know if I'd see that in my lifetime. So I think that's a wonderful step in the right direction. And then on renewable natural gas and hydrogen, our companies have huge interest in that space. A little longer term, probably for hydrogen, but not necessarily. More on the heavy duty side is a little more challenging. But moving on the light duty side, the heavy duty side, the industrial side, I think hydrogen we will see will play a continued increased role in our energy future.
Thank you very much for that. We have time for one final question, and it's in relation to the upcoming conference. What are your hopes for the conference? What do you hope the discussion from a conference like ESF North America will help your members and the wider industry achieve over the next 12 months or so?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think most importantly, what I hope comes out of the conference is a recognition that we share the same goals, that there's more that unites us than divides us, that we trust in each other's expertise and desire to move towards a sustainable energy future together, not apart, and that everybody does actually have a voice at the table and a seat at the table, and that we don't demonize any party and welcome them to the table to try to solve these problems together. Because again, we don't think we have the corner on wisdom, but we do believe we have a lot to offer. And I hope out of the conference that we can have a renewed interest in really working together on the environment and the economy and our decarbonization, because I think they go hand in glove. And when either one of those is out of balance, we won't get to a sustainable future. So we've got to have them both. So the balance between the economy, the environment, and energy equity, I would say, are very, very critical. So I'd love to see us kind of come out of the conference with a renewed desire to work together, and really hoping for that and what our next steps will be.
Thank you. I totally agree with that sentiment. Catherine, a huge thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, and really looking forward to meeting you in person and continuing the discussions at ESF North America, which will be in San Francisco a little bit later on in the year. So a big thank you to you.
Well, thank you, Stefan, and thanks to ESF.
Thank you very much.